Hello everyone, welcome back. My name is Erin and welcome to my channel on finding your path to your best emotional and physical health. So if you like what you hear today and you like this series that we're doing, please make sure you click subscribe and hit the thumbs up and get the notifications so you can find out when new videos are coming out almost every day. Also, please share this information with anyone that you think might need it and who needs a little bit of boost with their emotional and physical health, because I want this information to get out to as many people as possible. So with that, let's get started on today's topic. Oh, and don't forget to join us for the question and answer session. We're going to do a live question and answer tomorrow morning, so look for that announcement once that gets finally scheduled. So we'll do that to answer some more personalized questions about things that you're concerned about regarding cognitive decline to kind of match with this series that we're doing right now. So again, don't be afraid. Let me know. And if you can't make the live, just go ahead and give me some comments and I'll try to answer those the best I can, and then go back and watch when you have some time. So with that, please let me know what else I can do to help you. So let's get into today's topic. Will be kind of a quick one. We've been talking a lot about diet and things that we have to consider if we're worried about cognitive decline. And even though this series is really focused on cognitive decline and how our brain works and how it could be affected by overall loss of brain mass and stuff like that, this is going to also affect our overall physical functioning and our overall emotional functioning, because the healthier our brain is, the more we're able to process the stuff we need to process, and we're going to have better emotional balance. It's just, we can't fix one without fixing the other. They all kind of go together. So just kind of keep that in mind, that these principles will help with all kinds of things, not just actually cognitive decline. So we've been talking a lot about, like I said, diet, and we, figured out that, okay, vegetables need to be the basis for everything. But now let's talk about adding in the things that we might like to eat a little bit more, like our proteins. I call this the Level Up series. And we want to kind of work on, we want to add proteins and fruits and those kinds of things. And I want you to think of protein more as a condiment or a side dish. We, especially in the United States, maybe not so much in other countries, take our protein almost as a main course. And all you have to do is kind of go through the meat section of a grocery store and realize those are what people expect to have as their portion size, even though they tell you should really only have 6 to 8 ounces as a portion size. Well, I don't know if you've seen a chicken breast these days, but they're huge. So I tend to, when I'm looking at those, I cut them in half, because that's going to get you the amount that you need without being overly, indulgent in those. Now, even though proteins are slower burning and better for you than the sugars, they are not necessarily that easy for your body to break down, so they can be a little bit of excessive for you. So we just kind of want to figure out how much your overall protein intake should be. You want to have 0.8 to 1 gram of protein per kilogram of body weight. So you kind of have to do some conversions to figure out what that is, what your actual kilograms are, to try to get that kind of protein intake. And that's really important throughout the aging process. They've actually done a little bit of research, and they've figured out maybe in middle age we don't need it quite as much, and then we need a little more as we age to prevent that loss of muscle mass. So that's kind of one of the things to consider where you're at in the aging process. If you're doing a bariatric surgery or a weight loss, you might actually need a little bit more too, because I know they typically like about 60 grams of protein at least. So even if you start dropping down in weight, they want to make sure you have enough protein, especially to heal and that kind of thing, and that's kind of the basis of your overall nutritional intake. So you kind of want to be aware of that a little bit. So some people will need a little bit more protein if you've got some GI issues, or you're over 65, you've got a suboptimal BMI, or you're kind of doing some rigorous sports, then you might want to consider a little bit more protein, more on the higher end, 1 or 1.1 grams per kilogram. But otherwise, you can kind of stick to the 0.8 to the 1. So let's talk about some of the types of protein and what you need to look out for, because there's a lot of stuff out there and there's pros and cons to everything. So you kind of have to be aware. What they found mostly, which you get your most bang for your buck as far as nutrients and protein and stuff in general, is actually seafood and eggs. Those are the best because they have a really good fat profile and then they also have a really good protein profile. So the problem with some of the seafood is that a lot of it is farmed and there's a lot of toxins. So you kind of have to be aware and you got to figure out, okay, I got to buy the healthiest that I can afford. And wild caught for those is really the best for seafoods. And I try to remember that this is the acronym that they'll tell you. SMASH, right? Which is salmon, mackerel, anchovies, sardines, and herring. I had to think about that one for a minute because half of those fish, I'm like, I'm not eating those. So I tend to stick to the salmon because I don't like some of the other ones. But we might find like anchovies, like in a Caesar salad or something like that. And I don't think I've ever had herring. So those of you that like herring, please let me know if it tastes good. And I don't know that I've ever had mackerel, but salmon is pretty easy to come by. You can find it in most grocery stores and it's pretty tasty. So you can kind of work around that if that's your favorite. You also want to try to do wild caught shrimp because the farmed shrimp can also have a lot of issues with it. Farmed like seafoods like scallops, mussels, those are typically okay. They have a lot less toxin load, and there's a lot of information out there about that. But you can kind of pay attention to some of the information out there. Monterey Bay Aquarium has a seafood watch list that tells you what the healthiest ones are. Typically, the smaller the fish, the healthier it is because it's lower on the food chain and doesn't eat a lot of other toxins by eating other fish. So you kind of have to be kind of aware of that you don't need to have these big tunas and big swordfish are much more likely to ingest things by eating other fish than we probably care to put in our bodies. So we kind of got to be aware of that. Eggs are also fabulous. They're not quite the devil that people will make them out to be. It's saying that they raise our cholesterol levels and all of that. They don't quite do that as much as we would like to blame them for. There's a really good fat profile, especially in the yolks, and the yolks have choline, which is a precursor for acetylcholine. And acetylcholine is the neurotransmitter that we need for memory. So when you're having problems with memory or cognitive decline, eggs are really, really essential. I always tell people you got to eat eggs a couple times a week at the very least to have that kind of balance in there. This doesn't mean you have to cut out like red meats or pork or anything like that. Just kind of be a little cautious about how much you use them. Mostly because the really good quality ones that you should be eating are expensive, and a lot of people can't afford them or don't want to spend that kind of money. But again, if you're making smaller portions, you can stretch that a little bit further, and it's not quite as expensive as it appears to be. If you're feeding a family of 4 and you buy 2 big steaks and cut them in half, you're going to do a lot better than if you were to think you needed to buy 4 steaks. So, and then you're, making most of your plate vegetables. So those are kind of the things that we have to be kind of aware of when we're planning meals that are a little bit more healthy. And you want to try to stick with those meals, those meats that are grass-fed, because the grains and stuff are a lot of times inflammatory, like we've talked about. For us, when we eat those kind of grains that have the really bad fat profiles and high omega-6s, they also give them to the cows and other things that are being fed that, and that's not healthy for them, so therefore we're going to ingest unhealthy things. So we kind of need to be aware of that. There's a couple of websites out there that are useful, like one's called Eat Wild or US Wellness Meats, and you can kind of get some that's a little bit more natural shipped to you if you need that. Poultry, you want to try to get pasteurized poultry if possible, because then they're also a little bit more natural. USDA Organic is a pretty decent label. There's some other things like Circle C Farms, Buy Ranch Direct, and Rainbow Ranch Direct. Those Rainbow Ranch Farms, those are ones that also will have some more pasteurized chickens and turkeys and ducks, so that it's not quite corn-fed and stuffed where they're having a lot of issues with glyphosate and things like that. So that's your protein. So just kind of be aware of what's good and healthy out there. And let's talk a little bit about fruit, which is like the candy of the natural food world. So we got to kind of treat that. It's great for dessert and those kinds of things. Your best bet is to choose the low glycemic index fruits and ones that are high in antioxidants. And so the best ones for that are really basically your unsweetened berries. You want to have anything with a dark pigment, like blueberries, blackberries, some raspberries. Those things have flavonols in them, which are neuroprotective, okay? And blueberries are probably your best bang for your buck, but if you don't like those, try some blackberries and things like that. So the fresh ones, of course, are the best. But you can also, it's fresh organic, but you can also look at some frozen ones because those are usually all right as well. Now, I do want to briefly mention one fruit, or actually it's a vegetable, a root actually, that actually can be treated a little bit like a fruit because it has some sugar in it, and that's beets, okay? Because they're sugary, but they're non-starchy, the way they're made, the way the root is. They are really rich in nitrates, okay, which is help you be a vasodilator and increase blood flow, not only to the brain, but to all parts of the body. So think of them as the new Viagra. They will help lower the blood pressure because they do that vasodilation, and then increase blood flow everywhere. I always try to get nitrous oxide boosted in people that are having trouble with blood flow or brain shrinkage. And sometimes people can do it with a supplement, but if they've got the ability to eat beets or like beets, then I really recommend that. A lot of times now we're seeing like beet powder that you can put in things like smoothies and stuff like that to kind of give that boost if you don't like to eat straight beets. And you also have to be careful, how they're canned and stuff like that. We talked a little bit about supporting the gut yesterday, and we talked about probiotics and prebiotics and resistant starches and all of that. So just a quick reminder that unripened green tropical fruits have that resistant starch. So they're not as sweet as if they've been ripened, but they are also really good for digestive enzymes. So that's your green bananas and plantains and mangoes that are some of the best for that. So those are your fruits in general. Occasional apples aren't bad. Sometimes you have to be careful of pesticides and stuff that are put on those, even the organic ones. So you kind of want to just be aware of the fruits that you eat, and you want to try to do organic if at all possible, because you're going to have a lot less chemical exposure, which we know can be a neurotoxin. So now that you've leveled up in your eating, we'll talk next time about sweeteners and some things, because I know everybody likes sweetener in their coffees and things like that. So we're going to talk a little bit how we can incorporate those into our diet safely so that we can enjoy some of the things we want to enjoy. So thank you so much for listening. If you have any questions, please don't forget to comment or connect with me on the website. We've got coaching available to help guide people through all these changes and figure out what you need to do differently as you kind of heal your overall gut and your lifestyle for your overall health, optimal emotional and physical health. Because we would all love to age gracefully, so the better we can take care of our health, the better we will do that. So thank you so much for listening, and don't forget to connect with me on the website. Thanks, and have a great day.